But yeah, here's Uganda. And sorry for the poor quality, but I mean, I don't know how to record on my screen and then send that to you, so this is the best I can do. But, yeah, it's located here, and the scenery as well is actually not too bad. If you like big, crowded kind of cities like New York, for example, the Uganda is not a bad option for that matter. There's going to be more scenery images here, including what it's like during the day in public in some cities. The sunrise and the overcasting shadows upon the hills and the lands, which is very gorgeous. And just the valleys and the mountains in general. It's a gorgeous place. If you happen to be a foreigner in Uganda, they just consider you a Mzungu. Mzungu? I don't know how to pronounce it per se. Mzungus, though, were originally for Europeans actually, but just over time they considered it for foreigners, period. As children would be considered a orphan in the United States, they would have to not have a house, they'd have to be homeless. In Uganda, it's simply if you've just lost a father or a mother. The capital for Uganda is Kampala. Also, say hello to the train. Good timing, of course. If you're having to go number one, having to go pee, and you don't want to be blunt about it, you could just say making a short call. That's a common term used in Uganda. The average lunchtime around in Uganda is generally 1 p.m., and for dinner it's going to be around 9 p.m. In Uganda, they oftentimes grow not potatoes, but, potatoes. Irish potatoes, which is why oftentimes you'll hear them call their potatoes just Irish. The Christian and Muslim community actually live well together. There's very little conflict between the two, which is great. I mean, I wish you could say that about everywhere, but unfortunately not. The term for peanuts in Uganda are called G-nuts. I actually don't know why. I'm gonna check that soon, but I'm really curious too to why. I'll probably send an email to why along with this video. Ugandans are probably the most open and relaxed / loving people you'll meet. They're so friendly and they are so kind. It's impressive. It's really remarkable. And just like it would be in a lot of tropical areas, warm, hot areas, the wildlife is very noisy. And with how noisy Costa Rica is, I want to know how noisy Uganda is and have a little comparison there, because remember when pretty sure I told you I went to Costa Rica for a week. The wildlife is pretty noisy, but yeah. So now there's not 15 different languages spoken in Uganda. There's not 20. There's not 30. There's not 25. But there's 30 indigenous languages spoken in Uganda, which is just crazy. Uganda is the country with the most diversity in it. Ugandans are extremely friendly. They're the friendliest people you'll meet ever in Africa. The main languages that are spoken in Uganda are English, which surprised me. I don't know, I never knew much before this presentation I had to make, so I was very surprised. Swahili, Lugandu, and various Bantu / Nilotic languages. Oftentimes, and generally just about every time, unless in like a dire situation, young boys, girls, and Uganda women kneel when greeting one another out of respect. It's just their culture, of course. Ugandans have a very high value on relationships. They value it more than getting, something done, for example. They'd rather spend time and grow with one another over being productive. Men wear pants and boys wear shorts as tradition, but I also saw online that this is slowly changing, so that might not be the case within the next few years. And greetings are generally longer than average because, well, they value relationships. So it would make sense that they don't want to just get right to the point because, that's being productive. No, they don't care about that. They're trying to grow as a community and, just being loving. Which you can't say that's about a lot of places, unfortunately. So, when the British stepped in, the Ugandans had to deliver their administration rights of territory, which during the time was just of the Ugandan kingdom, to the British government. This led to the culture and the traditions of the British getting to the Ugandans and altering some of their traditions, but thankfully, some traditions did remain within the Ugandan community, you could say, and it's still in practice today. Their economic life also changed quite a bit when taxes were added in from the British. Those were mainly the big things that had changed when the British stepped in. The author I chose because I had emailed you that I didn't know the author I originally chose, and if you sent me who it was, I'm sorry I didn't see it, but I went with Rajat Nioji, mainly because his name sounded neat. He was born on December 17th, 1939, and died on December 3rd, 1995. And he was a writer slash editor, and he'd grown up mainly in Kampala, had moved to other places, but we'll get there in a moment, studying the arts of editing and writing in the University of London for a good portion of his life. He had actually is the one who founded Transition Journals, and later in his life moved to Ghana to continue working on this Transition Journals career, with Hull Soyinka becoming an editor of his because of how hectic and time consuming it was becoming for him. And unfortunately, he died at a relatively young age, at 57. And I tried to find an excerpt for him. I'm actually not too sure if I had to grab one because, it said that we'd read it in class, but there's no class to read it to. If I was supposed to find one, I'm sorry, but I could not find one for the life of me. I don't know. It's Transition Journals. Like there's a lot about how he founded it, but I just couldn't find any of his, or if I did, then I probably glanced over it because it just wasn't obvious. I don't know. It was difficult, but yeah. And lastly, the thing is matoke. Now, matoke is pretty important in Uganda because, well, it's their national food. And the recipe is plantains, lemon juice of, and it's optional what you want, oil for frying, onions chopped up, tomatoes chopped up, or canned whole tomatoes strained, green bell pepper chopped, garlic cloves crushed, chili peppers chopped, though optional, cayenne pepper or red pepper, ground beef optional, or beef stew meat, cut in bite-sized pieces also optional, and finally a cup of beef broth optional, or 1 cup of beef stock, which is also optional. Usually I wouldn't be interested in a cuisine like this, especially since they usually oftentimes have bananas involved, but this, kind of looks good. I wouldn't mind trying it, especially since it's their national food. I would like to get a taste of why. So, thank you.